What's up, everybody? It's the Hardy Construction. You can find us at hardyconstruction.tumblr.com, youtube.com/hardyconstruction, as well as facebook.com/the Hardy Construction with your host Comp. And
Fine-toothed comb.
today's film is
Tomie, 1998 or 99?
99. Tomie,
Okay.
1999, directed by Ataru Oikawa, written by Ataru Oikawa, based on the manga series by Junji Ito, starring Miho Kano, Mami Nakamura, and Yuriko Doguchi. You were expecting me to see a racist voice, right?
No. You did it very well. I know you, in your head, you had terrible thoughts, but you did it very well.
A traumatized young woman is trying to recover her memories with the help of a psychiatrist. During her hypnosis sessions, she repeats the name Tomie, but is unable to recall where she knows it from. Which is sort of true, but it's not indicative of what this film really is about. So, Dan, why'd you pick this film Tomie from 1999?
I saw this years ago. I got it at a toy show, along with a bunch of other random, Japanese movies, and I don't know. I just remembered liking it. I'm not quite sure why.
Do you remember what were the other Japanese movies you saw?
One of them is actually the one that you want to do soon.
Okay, cool. So this must have been recently.
No, this is a while ago. This
Okay,
is
so
several years ago. Also, there was one, it was called the Stacy's or something.
Oh, right, Stacy, the chainsaw zombie cheerleader.
Yeah, it references Bruce Campbell and stuff. That's cool.
Okay, so this at least must have been in the 2000s when that happened, when you bought that, because it was, the movie that I was going to pick for next week, ironically, was Uzumaki, a.k.a. Spiral, which is also based on a comic written by Junji Ito.
I feel like it must have been 10 years ago.
We've already covered a Junji Ito an animated film based on Junji Ito works, which was Gyo. Remember that movie with the fish that had the spider legs?
Yeah, the fish that walked around, and the woman, the humans would get all bloated and shit.
Yeah, it was an entertaining film, but they completely butchered the source material, much like what they did with this one too. I think actually Spiral might be the closest to the material that he does, but they also
I remember Spiral was really abstract.
Yeah, Spiral is very artsy fartsy, and I think Tomie was trying to do that, but it obviously didn't have the budget for it. I mean, I told Danny to read the comic after he saw the film, and you can see what money they didn't have.
Immediately I was like, oh, okay, now I understand.
You can see what money they didn't have to cover in the film version of this comic book. If anything, let me just get into. I'm sure I did it in the Gyo episode, but I'm going to repeat my love for the works of Junji Ito. Junji Ito is a Japanese mangaka, and he does a lot of Lovecraftian style comic books, like horror comic books. But I mean, I think this guy's like a national treasure. Seriously, I think he's one of the greatest things ever come out of Japan. And it's funny because the comic I sent you, obviously, it's one of his earlier works. Because if you see his artwork now, it's incredible looking. My only thing is that his characters sort of look like fashion models, not in the one that you saw because it's pretty old, and I don't know why. In rereading the Tomie comics, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And he does have an ending to the comics, but some of them are mostly open ended. So maybe that's what they do when they try to adapt his works, because they've adapted a couple of his works.
Yeah, well, I mean, they made 8 sequels or something, so it's
that's what I thought, because, I mean, when I watched this, I knew of Tomie, the movie, because I remember, walking through Blockbuster and seeing, the VHS box for it way back when, and I just knew it was some weird Japanese horror film. I don't know whether it was a ghost film or, some film about cannibals, so I know it was about a girl, and there was a bag on the cover with, eyeball staring
I still don't know what it's about if I'm basing it just on the film.
So here's the thing.
No, I know what it's about because I read the comic. But.
So Junji Ito's comic books are very, very dark, but the more he does really creepy storylines that actually are kind of chilling for comic books, and it's not easy to spook people with comic books, I think, nowadays. Maybe back then, in the 60s and 70s and the 50s, when they had EC comics and stuff like that, when kids used to get scared of shit. But we're a
little desensitized.
We've seen news. But his comics sort of have this. They're like the original version of creepypasta, which is the scary stories online sort of thing. They're very disturbing sort of storylines that play out, and they deal a lot with body horror.
I liked when in the comic they were making a joke about she just ate a sandwich because they're sawing into her intestines.
Yeah. So, Tomie, the film, how can I get into this film? Because you were confused watching the movie too, right?
Well, because it doesn't really explain anything.
No, it doesn't. This film is, imagine, okay, let's say, okay, let me make an example. Let's say
like the comic within 10 minutes is like so much cooler than the movie.
Of course, yeah. So let's just say an example of how this film was made. Is that let's say if they made the film, okay, let's say if the film It, the two miniseries. Were never made, and it was just like a novel that people knew and read a lot, and then they decided to make a movie called It, but it took place 10 years after the book, and they just sort of referenced
and didn't explain anything about the origin.
So this film was almost like a hardcore, like only for the people that read the comic or something, or just because they had no budget for it.
So like basic idea is, there's this girl who can't die, a little piece of her body can grow into a new one. So they chop her up or whatever in the comic. Like, could they make like multiples of her?
Yeah, that's what happens. So basically, Tomie is this. Is she
like a demon, or was she a human?
It's not explained. I assume she's some sort of demon that her physical form is, taking.
But did she become a demon because of the way she was killed or something?
I don't know. No, I think she's been like that all this time. I think she's always been like this creature that... Sort of like that movie that we saw, the Italian horror film. No, it's not an Italian horror film. It was a horror film that took place in Italy. What was it called? Spring? Remember the guy who dates that immortal woman who turns into a monster if she needs to eat people and stuff like that?
So Tomie's whole thing is that she is very dislikable and manipulative and makes men go crazy and makes other people want to kill her.
Right, so basically let's discuss the movie and then get into the background of the comic book, which actually explains shit that the movie doesn't. So the film starts out with a really creepy song, by the way. Oh no, actually it starts out with the guy with the bag in the street and he bumps into...
Yeah, the music was awesome. When it first started, I was like, oh, this is going to be
cool. Yeah, that's a great song called Robbie's Song. And I remember when I first heard the song, I was like creeped out. I was like, ooh, because it's sort of like this weird acoustic guitar that's on a loop, and some guy's voice, or I guess somebody's voice, which is like altered to sound strange. And he's just saying, "If you love me, I will." He's just saying these weird phrases. And I remember the first time I heard the song, I was like, ooh, because they since there's 8 Tomie films. Somebody made a fan music video using that song, but with footage from Tomie the Beginning, which is a prequel.
I don't think I've seen any of the other ones. Are they probably horrible?
Tomie the Beginning is a prequel to this one, which actually, I guess, gets into the comic book. Which actually, covers... But I think it was shot on video, which is bizarre, because this movie was actually shot on film. And... what pisses me off is that they cut out, a scene that's not included in this film, and they actually just wiped out the whole idea of it, is, the sequence that we talked about with the students covering up her death. Because there's a scene, we'll get into that. So anyway, I remember seeing the music video for the Tomie the Beginning, and they realized they changed the Tomies. There's 8 Tomie films, and they keep changing the actress for it. So it's basically like...
Oh, each time, really?
Yeah, for each film. So it's almost like James Bond in a way. So, like...
Okay.
Japanese James Bond is a girl who can't die and, like, pisses people off. I will say this, the girl playing Tomie is the best actor in the film and is probably the most... Like, I was like, oh, she's not in this movie until, like, the last 15 minutes. And then I was watching, I was like, wow, shit, she just stole the whole film. She's, like, really good. She's played by Miho Kano.
Does she personally do anything evil besides being an asshole?
What I think is that, so, anyway, the movie starts out with this guy who has a bag, and inside the bag there's, like, you can see somebody's eyeball in it. It's like this demonic eye. And it cuts to the opening credits with Robbie's song. Then it cuts into this, psychotherapist sort of hypnosis session. I didn't know there was psychotherapists who, like, hypnotize you. And then
that lady is, like, the most miserable-looking woman. She
and then they
miserable.
They give you tea and stuff. And I don't know why they even, like, her character is not necessarily important in the film. You know what I mean? It's like... Yeah. She's sort of there for the cop to explain the plot that we were not let in on.
I still wasn't clear, even when the cop explained, why does the cop go to her?
Okay, so
there's a detective to the artist
right?
student?
Yes, that's why Detective Harada we're just cutting through the bullshit because Tsukiko is the main girl in the film. She's a photography girl, and she's dating this asshole who's cheating on her with a pretty hot chick. Um, and anyway, so she has like that cool wavy hair, and she looked good in her underpants, so she was cute. Anyway, so Tsukiko is trying to figure out or trying to remember what happened to her. Although I'm sure everybody else knows what happened to her, and she's for the reason why she's going to the psychotherapist makes no fucking sense because her mother would know what happened to her, right? I mean, like,
yeah.
So what
maybe
happens?
Maybe the mom.
Yeah, but then what is she wasting money? Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why are you sending to? You know what happened to her, and obviously this cop knows what happens to her. Why do they send her to a hypnotherapist? Maybe it's bothering her because she can't go to sleep.
Do we know what happens to her?
Yeah, we see it in a flashback later on. Is apparently the guy, I didn't even put two and two together, but the guy at the beginning of the film who has
the eye patch.
Who has Tomie's head inside the bag. Yeah, that was her ex-boyfriend that she cheated with. That
who the art student did?
Cheated on Tsukiko. Remember, he explains that. Oh, I took your boyfriend. That's what Tomie says.
Yeah,
that was her boyfriend. Apparently, he was so enraged that he cut her head off and took the head, and the body was stood up and walked around. And that actually happens in the comic, but it's for a different reason. And obviously, it loops over again at the end because that's exactly what happens at the end. Her new boyfriend ends up cutting. Yeah, it's just like something.
So the eye patch guy killed Tomie in the movie.
Right, originally, yeah, he cut her head off. And then he just
I was like honestly confused, and then that guy, the chef, like trying to drown Tsukiko. Like I was like,
everybody becomes obsessed. Who comes around Tomie becomes obsessed with either falling in love with her and doing everything she wants, and then trying to kill her and cut her up. That's basically what happens. Women get jealous, and guys become lovesick.
Is that her way of multiplying, I guess? I guess it is.
I don't think she's doing it intentionally, because remember when he stabs her in the neck at the end, she's sort of like, what the fuck? And she just kind of collapses. I think she has like a power trip. I think she knows that she'll, kind of come back anyway, but I don't think she's intentionally looking to get hurt. Because, she would just, have guys cut her up all the time instead of walking around and doing stupid shit.
Yeah, so but she gets set on fire and then is like smiling. That's a great scene.
I don't know what the fuck that was about. It seems like okay. So let's just get into the conversation a little bit. With Dr. Hosono is her hypnotist therapist, and she is trying to bring out. I guess obviously Tsukiko went to this therapist to figure out what the fuck's going on or why she can't sleep, because she says she just wakes up after having nightmares of being covered in blood, and she just can't go back to sleep. So she's like, I gotta find out what's going on. And so Dr. Hosono is trying to figure this out. Midway through the film, it's a very slow-moving film. We have Tsukiko's
Yeah, I mean, it's a 95-minute movie, and it feels like it's
a very slow-moving film. I really wanted to like this film. I sort of like this film because I knew the comic, and it's sort of in Junji Ito's world, and it's very rare to see Junji Ito movies. Not that rare because there's fucking 8 Tomie movies. But anyway, Tsukiko's relationship with her boyfriend, who's sort of an asshole, like guy who works at a restaurant. He's in a band with a couple of other guys in the restaurant, and he is seeing her friend Kaori, who's played by a girl named Rumi. I don't know what the hell. I guess
what my thought was when I saw her naked?
Rumi?
The girl, the cheater, the one he's cheating with. My thought was that she's probably like really old at this point.
Oh yeah, this is from 1999. So
but isn't that weird? Like you could like look at like old school like
of
porn
course,
or naked people, and it's like a turn on. But then you like think about it, it's like, oh, they're like 60 now.
Well, these people, I assume they were in 1920, 19 or 20 years old during the film. I think they were all 20 because the girl says to her, "You're 20," so they're probably
so they're not that
40.
Old
they're probably like 40 by now.
Okay, they could still be good then.
Jeez. So, her friend Kaori sleeping with her boyfriend. She doesn't know about it. And anyway, that doesn't matter because I think they're trying to build up Tsukiko's, character, but it doesn't really matter. Like, there's nothing of substance that Tsukiko does in this film. Like, there's really nothing. And
they didn't explain stuff like. Like the so the neighbor who killed her or whatever, the ex-boyfriend, and you see him, he has like he feeds it a cockroach and then you see her getting bigger and bigger. But it's like
right, her ex-boyfriend.
But if you're not paying close attention, you might not realize that that's like a creature growing because they don't really like show it explicitly.
Right, you just see like in the first couple of scenes, you just see a head in a bag, and then it's like a 12-year-old girl, and then later on you don't really see Tomie until the last 15 minutes. Like I said, you see her like the first time you see her face, she's in basically almost in complete darkness talking to Tsukiko's boyfriend. And Tomie is obviously very pissed at what happened, that Tsukiko did something to her in the past. It's done better in the comic book than it is in the film. It makes Tsukiko look like an asshole in the movie. What happened is, I'll fill in the blanks. Tsukiko was dating the guy who had the bag in the beginning of the film. I think it's the guy who had the bag in the beginning of the film because it makes sense. It's the only thing that makes sense. He cheated on her with Tomie. He got so obsessed. He got so obsessed he cut Tomie's head off. So before he cut her head off, she had taken photos of Tomie. Tsukiko took photos of Tomie because she was a photographer, and she spread them all around the school with the word demon on it, like she's a bitch sort of thing.
But she is a demon.
Right, but she doesn't want people to know that. I think Tsukiko didn't know she was an actual monster.
That was in the movie or only in the
comics? Yeah. Tomie says that. Why did you spread those photos? And I guess I looked up.
Yeah, it was so vague.
Right. She obviously, there was a photograph of her that she was spreading around school that said demon on it. It wasn't like a very not nasty photo. It was just a photo of her, but with the word demon on it. But apparently they were friends, and that really pissed her off, so she just did that. Anyway, so Tomie is back for revenge. She's sort of that person that will never leave you. Anyway,
she reminds me of someone I used to know.
So to explain, me too. So to explain, Detective Harada is this guy. I like Detective Harada's character. He comes out of nowhere in the middle of the film.
He's okay. He just seems kind of like unnecessary,
Yeah, he's there to explain plot and what happens that we should have known.
He doesn't explain it.
Yeah, it's a very obscure telling of what the plot is. Apparently, he knew all about. I guess he had dealt with this before, like the whole classroom that had. It's not explained that in the comic book because it doesn't mean it doesn't make any sense in the movie. In the comic book, this is what happens. Tomie is seeing a guy, I think, named Yamada in the comic book. Okay. She's also sleeping with a teacher, and she tells the teacher she's pregnant, and the teacher's
kills her.
So her So her boyfriend gets pissed at her and starts yelling at her, and she falls off a cliff and dies. And they're about to say, "Oh shit, we're gonna tell the cops." There's 42 kids there. The teacher says, "No," because he's thinking about, "Oh shit, they're gonna find out she's pregnant." So it doesn't make any sense in that comic book either for him to tell these 42 students, "Let's cut up her body," but they all hated her. So they decide to cut up her body, and they all take a piece and put it away. That
sounds like a fun field trip. I would have loved that.
So they decide to cut up her body and throw it away. What they don't know is that each section of Tomie turns into a Tomie. So she's essentially like a lizard's tail. Or what kind of tail? What is the tail that grows back? I forgot what kind of lizard.
Starfish.
Starfish, yeah, that kind of thing.
But they don't show, maybe later in the comic they do, or in the movies, but so there's going to be multiple of her.
Yeah, they actually do in the comic book in the sixth chapter of the comic book, which I actually recommend people to check it out. I don't know why
I would just gather them all together and incinerate them in a cremation thing.
But I think that doesn't matter either. I think if you incinerate the actual ashes still recombinate and turn into something else.
Well, I would incinerate it, get all the ashes together, and pour it inside cement.
So anyway, Detective Harada is trying to figure out this because in the film version, we just know that Tsukiko's boyfriend chopped Tomie's head off and ran off with the head, and the body was actually moving around a little bit. I don't think it stood up like it did in the comic book.
Do you think it danced? It looked cool in the comic.
It did, it did. So Tomie was like, I think what happened is that it was so traumatic for Tsukiko, she just blanked it out of her mind, and then they had to move to another area. So Harada was like, I want to know who this Tomie is because we never found a body. Although, apparently she walked into classroom. In the comic book, there's a great scene where after all that had happened, the kids were there when they chopped up her body and tossed it away.
She just walks in.
The next day of class, she just walks into class. And there is a sort of a remake called Tomie Unlimited that just came out. Oh, well, it came out like 3 or 4 years ago.
It was a remake, like a full reboot?
Yeah, I think it's an actual adaptation of the comic book where, that whole thing where she's killed by a bunch of people. Or where she's chopped up by people. And it's directed by the guy who did Tokyo Gore Police. So it's just like full-on gore and weird shit happening in the movie. But okay. I watched like the first 10 minutes and the special effects were so fucking bizarre, like cheap but good at the same time. And I was like, ugh, like, he's great. That director, I think, is Nagoro
Tokyo Gore
or something.
Police is really crazy.
I love that movie, yeah. But I think like I don't think that was the right material for him to cover. But I actually think we should review it sometime down the road because it's actually so bizarre. Like there's a scene where they open up a door, and Tomie's head is the size of the room, and she's just looking at her. So it's like that kind of film. So it's like they actually go all out with the special effects that they didn't have the budget for in this one, because that also happens in the comic. But it's I'll talk about that later. Anyway, so the whole film is dealing with Detective Harada looking for it. And the real interesting stuff doesn't happen until like the last 20 minutes of the film when people start going crazy. But it's still low key.
It's a very boring movie for most of it.
Yeah, I really wanted to like it a lot because it's associated with Junji Ito, and they actually made enough films. And Junji Ito was like handpicked the girl who plays Tomie in the film, and I think he actually did a really good job because she's.
She's definitely the best part.
But in the comic book, she comes off as more of a bitch. In this one, she's still a bitch, but more like creepy. An avenging kind of asshole. Do you know what I mean?
She's creepy and like sociopathic in this.
Yeah, but the film almost is like, in a way, treating it as like she's an avenging ghost. But I think she's always had this power before that. So, and the film almost treats it like she's an avenging ghost, like The Crow or something, but just as a teenage girl, a nasty teenage girl. So, so that's why it's kind of painted differently, because she still is kind of creepy and fearful in the film. But you almost
does the comic
understand.
ever explain?
I don't think it outright explains what she is or why she is.
Yeah, why she is. That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think she's just supposed to be like an embodiment of obsession for men and women.
No, I just wonder how she got the power, or if she already had it, or.
It was so weird because I was always like, as long as I've known about the Tomie stuff, I've always known that she has a birthmark under her left eye, and I didn't notice it into the movie until like, because I remember I was looking for it too, and I didn't actually see it. That whole scene where she's talking to Tsukiko as Tsukiko's tied up in the hospital bed, and probably the coolest fucking scene in the film.
Yeah, but then she has it, which is pretty creepy.
Right, that's what I don't understand at the end of the film. It's like,
I think that was kind of just being stupid. Like,
yeah, I think because remember, she at the end she has Tomie's body in her car, headless body, and she takes it out to, I guess, dispose of it, and it gets up and starts walking away, or it actually just starts walking towards her. Then a fog comes in. And I'm like watching it going, okay, because the next scene is her running onto a dock. That was night. And then it was like sort of like dawn. And I was like, her clothes are clean. There's no blood on her. Tsukiko. She's walking on the docks. And then Tomie comes out. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? It almost feels like... It almost feels like they previewed the movie. Then they were like telling the directors, like, you got to put a fucking ending to this movie. You got to put something here. And he was like, "Oh shit!"
I loved the last like 5 minutes when she sets her on fire and like the way she stops laughing.
Yeah,
and then
but
when
it's
she
so
comes
bad.
Running up and no, I liked it. It was really creepy. And then when she comes up smiling and it just cuts away like so quick, it was like so.
No, I mean I liked it, but it's just so badly done because it's not an ending to the film because she like had a flare in her hand, and I was like, "Where'd you get the flare from? The car, I guess." But it's like that scene.
Dock. She could have.
I know, but it's like that shot wasn't part of the last part of the film. Like the film, film had some sort of consistency with how it was playing out, right. But like she suddenly like. It turns into a long shot. Like they're like, Tomie's telling Tsukiko, "I am you and you're me," and they start laughing at each other. They start laughing like really bizarrely because that happens a lot in Junji Ito comics. Like he does weird shit where characters will start laughing, but it's like really creepily done. And I guess they got the spirit of it in here. But then she has a flare in her hand, and she's like, "Goodbye, Tomie." And then you see Tomie Tomie has his face on.
She shouldn't have done it near the water though.
Right. I love the way the actress Miho Kano plays Tomie because then her face gets like really serious.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's fucking awesome.
No, it's great. But it's just badly put together. That's what I think. And then it
Yeah.
cuts to a far shot, and Tomie's on fire by herself, and it looks like there's a body collapsed on the floor, but I couldn't tell. Like, it just cuts to one person alone standing on the docks. Like, it's just badly edited, which is fine, whatever. Then it cuts to, like, I assume a year later or sometime later, Tsukiko taking photographs of people at, like, local shops and shit.
Do you think that she's going to become Tomie?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what happens. She looks into the mirror. I wish they would have been much more explanatory about that, because it happens in the comic book. Anyway, so in the film at the very end, she looks in the mirror, and then Tomie kind of comes out of the shadows. And I love that ending. I thought that was cool. I actually sort of like the film, even with all its flaws. It's not a very good movie, but I like the movie. The first like half is not.
Yeah, like this is a movie that like.
But in the comic book,
like $1 million.
In the comic book, I think it does, and they did it, and they have it in the sequels. I assume they did a lot of stuff in the sequels, but in the comic book, there is one of the chapters. I think it's the one that I think it was the last Tomie comic that he did. Junji Ito did. A girl is like sick, and I think she needs a kidney transplant. And she's
a girl is no one.
Yeah, Tomie is. I'm sorry.
I said a girl is no one.
That's hilarious. So this girl is like dying of not having a kidney, and she has a boyfriend, and the boyfriend gets obsessed with Tomie, who has a different name, and he kills her, and they bring her to the emergency room, and her kidney is put into this girl, and at the end she starts turning into Tomie because she has that beauty mark under her left eye. So they hinted to that in here, but it has absolutely no fucking reference at all, I guess. But then all the guys would have, you know what I mean, that she kissed would have had that shit. You know what I mean? Because in the comic book, she doesn't even sleep with the guys. She doesn't care about the guys. She just likes the power. She doesn't care about men or anything or any relationship with people. She just likes herself. What a
mean person.
A super cock tease? Is that what it is?
She should be. Yeah, if you're gonna like kill people or drive them mad, like
how dare you as a man?
At least
you're pushing your male sexuality upon women. Supernatural women on top
I'm
of it.
Tomie splaining.
So. So that at least they should have done
something.
They should have at least done something where Tsukiko would have got into an accident and they have to put Tomie's guts in her and she starts turning into her at least, but they don't have the money for it in the movie. So I mean, Dr. Hosono gets killed. Harada is just walking around looking at shit. He's not really of use other than to explain what the fuck happened in the film.
Yeah, he's very vague, and also they like really didn't follow through with why are the chefs and shit like getting all crazy, like
because she worked for them. She worked as a waitress.
Yeah, I know, but they didn't really like make it clear.
Yeah, I mean, it was real. When she came into the job, she like automatically everybody fell in love with her, and I guess that's how it works in the comic. But it's like last 20 minutes of the film, she's like guys going crazy. But their deaths were pretty neat. Like
you're saying this having read the comic first, like
right? Exactly.
I haven't seen this movie in like a decade. And
but I did like that. I like that the guy was the restaurant owner was hanging out the side of the window with the umbrella open up in his mouth through his head. That was pretty funny. And I guess they had killed the version of Tomie in there. I wasn't sure because I think there were two Tomies by the time of the film. Because remember, Tomie walks out of the fucking apartment after Kaori, but Tomie's inside the restaurant at the same time. So I mean, it's clearly a woman that comes out after Kaori, the best friend that was sleeping with Tsukiko's boyfriend,
the curly hair one, yeah.
Right. And at the same time, Tomie's having talking to the boyfriend in the fucking in the restaurant. So I mean, it's really a bizarre film, but nothing is explained. And it's fine with an art film that's not explained. We always go back to.
Do you think all the Tomies get together and have like giant orgies?
In the comic book, there's a bunch of. I think there's something where one of the storylines for the comic book, which you should finish reading because I think you'd enjoy it. There's a guy who was obviously obsessed with Tomie, and he went to this little seaside town, and he was trying to sell them Tomies, basically bags of meat. He's like, these are seeds that'll turn into a beautiful woman. He's obviously fucking nuts. And they tell him to go fuck himself, so he throws all the pieces of meat into the sea that's nearby the town. And people start just throwing themselves over the cliffs, killing themselves. And these two kids are fishing, and they go fishing, and the hook grabs a fucking Tomie out of the water and goes back down, and then the kid's like, what the hell? So he's like, I think there's a woman drowning in there or something. So he jumps in, and it's like a couple minutes later, and the other kid is like, what the hell is going on? So he jumps into the water, he looks inside, and there's like 30 or so Tomies merged together in the seawall. like
Ooh.
fucking like what do you call that stuff? Starts with a C. It's like whatever,
What?
like coral reef
Coral
stuff.
reef.
One of
Yeah.
them, he sees one of them just like coral in the wall, and then there are 30 of them, and they're eating the kid in the water. So he's like, "Holy shit!" So he gets
Oh,
out
they're
there.
cannibals.
Yeah, they eat people in the comic book. I don't think it happens in the film.
Yeah, because
In this film,
the impression I got is that Tomie doesn't actually physically hurt anity.
right? She eats them in the other movies. Some of the movies, I think. But anyway,
Okay.
so at the end of that,
What a bitch.
I think we should call her an asshole, just so we don't have women thinking we're sexist by
But
calling
she
a female character a
kills
bitch.
people and eats them.
Yes, she's an asshole technically. So
She's a female
anyway,
dog.
so at the end of the comic book, late at night, one night, everybody's like, we don't believe this kid, so we'll just go into the water. They just find the body of his friend who's dead. And one night, like in the middle of the night, 30 of them, like naked Tomies, just are walking through the town, and everybody's like scared shitless, and that's how the story ends. So I mean, that's like,
Nice.
go
So
read the comic
Tomie's like
book.
a parasitic demon.
I guess so. She's sort of
She
like
could she's like a bacteria that
she's
just
an
keeps
unkillable.
multiplying.
Yeah, she's this unkillable organism.
So I
and
think
they
that's why she makes people kill her. Maybe she doesn't do it consciously, but that's like how her body like survives.
Yeah, she's like probably super. Is sending out super
Pheromones.
pheromones, right? So I think that really affects, and it's an interesting idea, and I wonder how they do it with the other films. Because Tomie Beginning might be an interesting one to watch, just because I remember watching. Anyway, at the very beginning of this episode, we talked about the song, Robbie's song. Somebody made a music video using footage from that film, and the Tomie in that movie is very pretty. Like but she has like a fucking death stare, like creeped me out when I looked at her face, because she's
That's
very
perfect.
pretty, but she does this look to there's a scene where I think she's at a waterfall, but I don't know which character she's talking to in the movie. I might have been Tsukiko. I don't know if Tsukiko's in every version of this film.
yeah, I was gonna say like I bet that the characters change because she
Because
probably moves
in the
from time
first,
to time.
so here's the difference in the comic book. It's not Tsukiko and her boyfriend who decapitated Tomie. It was a different girl and her boyfriend. In the movie, they just ported it over. I think her name was Yamamoto or some shit like that. Anyway, in the beginning one, I remember watching it, and they do that same gag where I think they put that sequence with the kidney transplant in the prequel one, even though that doesn't happen in the prequel, in the same storyline. And I swear to God, it was a sequence where a girl's sleeping, and it looked like one of my ex-girlfriend's face. But I don't know if it was like, she was pretty, so I was like, damn.
Yeah, no, but that's
yeah,
upsetting.
it bummed me. It like bummed me out because I remember like watching her sleep, and I was like, oh Jesus, like this bums me out just looking at it. Not that I had a good relationship, it was just bumming me out. And so that's why I was like, I don't really want to watch this movie. But I don't know if that makes me racist because the girl was Japanese I had dated. Anyway, so that's that.
People could look at the same. Now I want to. You know what I want to do actually? Because I'm not watching 8 movies, but I think I want to like look up like fan rankings of the movies and try to watch like the highest ranked one.
I watched the trailer of Replay, which is the second film in the Tomie franchise, and it looks really good. It looks like it goes all like nuts on it. Like it looks like they put money into the special effects.
This is a
of, like,
movie.
shit.
The main problem with this movie is it has zero budget.
It doesn't explain anything, and it has a bizarro like artsy ending out of nowhere. And so I think the ones that we should check out are Replay and Unlimited, because Unlimited I think is probably the closer.
Unlimited is the reboot,
right? Pretty much. But okay. So talking about this film, I would say anybody who's gonna watch this film, I guess it's considered a Japanese horror classic because we always hear about this fucking movie. Always, I've been hearing about this movie since the late 1999, since 2000s on. 99, 2000 on. You're gonna watch it if you want to watch Japanese classic horror. I'm saying go into it with trepidation or with least expectations. That's what I meant. And I say read the comic book. There's like 7 chapters in the comic book of Tomie online. They sell it also. I think there's actually more, but I'm not sure what they have online. I remember reading them at the library. They're called Junji Ito Horror Classics or some shit like that. But definitely check them out. Junji Ito, if anything, go read everything of Junji Ito's works, and then you'll just be prepared to be disappointed by all the adaptations of his works, because they just fuck his works up all the time. Anyway,
yeah, well, they do that with Stephen King too.
he actually directed his own short film based on one of his comic books, and the comic book it's pretty funny. It's a comic book. The movie based on the comic book that he did is about this guy who I think he cheats on his girlfriend with a psychic or something, who puts a curse on him, and his head falls off. So he has to hold his hands on his head all the time, or his head will fall off.
That's so like the scary stories where the person removes the
Junji
scarf.
Ito got it from. But Junji Ito also made a seriously funny pet cat comic book. So like,
okay,
it's like awesome, like just a guy living with his cat, and it's like one of the funniest comics ever. And even though it's drawn still in his weird style, it's
is it like funny. Cute?
It is. It's very cute. It's very fucking funny.
Okay.
Anyway, so I say go read Junji Ito's comics and then watch the movies. But Junji Ito's works are fucking sick. And there's like websites. I'll suggest saying there's a website. Is he
still around? Is he still?
Yeah, he's still alive. He's still making work. He was supposed to do a video game with the guy who did Metal Gear Solid and Guillermo del Toro, but then Sony totally destroyed it or something. And anyway, he just check out everything he does. He's really cool. There's a website called Slug Girls, SLUGGIRLS, which I think is a reference to Spiral. Remember, because people would turn into like fucking snails and shit like that.
It's been a very, very long time.
This is anyway. This is I enjoy it, but I say if you have to watch Japanese classic, I guess I wouldn't pick this as a Japanese classic, but just watch it whatever because it's from the '90s and it certainly has a '90s feel. There's no feeling of a movie like a Japanese movie made in the 1990s. Because there's a specific feeling to it. You can say like Audition or Evil Dead Trap 2. There's just a specific feeling about those movies that I don't know what it is about them.
It's a really good feeling.
It is because
no matter how shitty they are, you sort of
they just have a specific, very strange feel to them. Anyway,
what's your rating?
I would give this film a 5 out of 10. Being friends to the end, literally.
Okay. Is that where they got the saying from? Okay, I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10 because even though there are many things I didn't like, I do like the character a lot and it made me interested in the whole series.
Yeah, the girl playing her, Miho Kano, is excellent, playing Tomie. As for a little screen time she has,
and I like the other girl too.
Sukiko is good too. And her friend Kaori was hot too.
6 out of 10. 6 out of 10, somebody sets you on fire, and then like a month later, you're smiling and happy to see them again.
And with that, Danny, what's the final word?
Fine toothbrush.
The horror deconstruction.